What is good, streaming people? Welcome to another edition of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Tommy Tran. We are getting you ready for another big night across high school football, including a look at the top games of the night and the players you should be looking out for. As we always do here on this show, we start with the excellent rankings from MaxPreps, the top 10. And you see St. John Bosco handling business against Mater Dei. The Monarchs dropped to number 5. That means Allen, St. John's, Miami Central. They all benefit from that, especially Allen. 22 straight wins, getting 74 points over Plano East, most points scored since Kyler Murray's junior season of 2013. Then St. John's with the Cadets and John Casciamento, 14 straight wins after beating Our Lady of Good Counsel. And more coming up later in the top 25. Jay Sarah will be a topic we'll be talking about. But let's welcome in our guys, our experts. And first off, it's Barton Simmons, 24/7 Sports from the Nashville, Tennessee area, I should say. And then Mr. Everything, the guy we call affectionately here on CBS Sports HQ, Zack Poff, the football editor, joining us from the Golden State. All right, so we got to start with the game of the year. Mother Nature was the only thing to stop these two teams on Friday. They picked things up on Saturday. Zach, you called it, man, about 38 points. St. John Bosco scored 41. What was your biggest takeaway from that game?
Just how well-balanced St. John Bosco was, man. That was why I felt they were the number one team in the country coming in, and well-balanced attack on offense, man. DJ Uwangalele showed why he's the best quarterback in the country. They ran for nearly 200 yards. The defense played lights out. But the biggest difference was the offensive line for St. John Bosco. 2020 offensive tackle Drake Metcalf had a big-time game. DJ didn't get sacked one time, and Bryce Young was pressured a lot that game, and that really was the difference. But I think St. John Bosco proved they are the best team in high school football, man. Well coached by Jason Negro, and DJ, man, he's looking like the player of the year this season during his junior campaign.
Just the 8th time since 2001 versus 2, the 6th time that has been decided by double digits. Again, you were on the field to watch that game. You were also on that same field to watch Mater Dei and IMG. How different was this game from a talent perspective than the one you saw about a month ago?
Man, IMG, they're big guys. They're a lot bigger than what Bosco brought, but I just think St. John Bosco might be the most well-coached team, and then you add in the talent. I would say that's the difference for St. John Bosco compared to maybe an IMG Academy, where they have to be more well-coached compared to IMG Academy, where you can just give it to Trey Sanders and Noah Kane. But not a huge difference. Obviously, Bosco, Mater Dei, and IMG, they're 3 of the top teams in high school football for a reason. But I was just really impressed with the way that DJ played in the offensive line for Bosco. That was the big takeaway for me, for sure. And they were smart. They forced Bryce Young to stay in the pocket, and that really proved to be the difference in that one. And St. John Bosco, man, if they run the table this year, clear-cut number 1 from the start to finish would be pretty impressive, as their rival Mater Dei did it in 2017.
No doubt. Bart, let me bring you into the fold here. When we talk about the talent on the field for this game, you're talking about, 40 D1 offers, about 49 3-star guys at the very least. You saw the talent. You saw it play out a little bit. What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, I think one of my biggest takeaways here is just DJ Uwangalele and Zach's called him, the best quarterback in the country, and he probably is the best quarterback in the country regardless of class. And at 24/7 Sports, we sort of made him earn it from a ranking standpoint. We've always known how talented he is, even when he was playing just sort of bits and pieces as a freshman. But we've really made him go out and earn the ranking. And I think over the course of this year, he's starting to position himself as a really strong candidate for the number 1 player in the country for the class of 2020. Just so talented, so big. When he's given time, he's just so good on the back end to really threaten defensive backs. And on the other side, defensively, I think you got to credit the defensive backfield for St. John Bosco. Chris Steele had a great night. What they've got with him and Trent McDuffie and just all over the field defensively. So much talent, so difficult to move the ball. It's quite a statement by St. John Bosco. And this is coming from a guy who thought Mater Dei was going to win. So I'll take my medicine on that one. St. John Bosco's the real deal. Props to Zack Poff for getting that one right in the rankings.
All right, so Mater Dei drops from 2 to 5. Guys, let's talk about the team that has moved up, and that is Allen, Texas. And Zach, I know if anybody's been watching this program before, you're not going to have a team leapfrog a number 1 team without a loss right now. But what are the chances for Allen, Texas, if they run the table? They'd have to get a little bit of help, of course, down the road. But what are your assessment of the Eagles right now?
My assessment is they're as good and talented as anyone in the country, man. You look at that quarterback wide receiver combination with Grant Tisdale, 2019 Ole Miss guy, and then Theo Weiss, a guy that's, committed to Oklahoma, might be the best receiver in high school football. But if Allen and St. John Bosco both run the table, St. John Bosco is going to be number one. So they definitely need Bosco to lose. And another team that's, right in the mix also is out in Washington, D.C., and that's St. John's. And they've had a tougher national schedule than Allen. But what Allen is going to face in the playoffs in Texas, that's going to kind of get them closer to the schedule when it comes to strength of schedule, that is. So, Allen, take it each Friday, win each game, see what happens. Some people hit me up and they ask about hypotheticals. I don't do hypotheticals. I judge them what they do each week and take it 1 week at a time. We go from there.
All right, that's the process from our football editor, Zack Poff at MaxPreps. Time to take a look at the top 5 scoreboard as we present them to you on a Friday night here on CBS Sports HQ. St. John Bosco can't let down now, right? We talked about Allen, Texas as well. St. John's, they have a bye there with Miami Central moving up one spot at Northwestern, and then Mater Dei trying to bounce back against J. Sarah Catholic, and we will talk about J. Sarah in just a bit. You are streaming CBS Sports HQ. Time to break down the regions across the country. And as we take a look at the West Coast, stacked. On the right, you see the excellent 25 rank and 5 teams all in the top 11. So with that, let me ask our football editor from MaxPreps, Zack Poff, this question. Can the Golden State make a claim that they've got the best high school football in the country?
Yes, I didn't want to say it too quick because then people would say I'm too biased. But, they got to stay at high 8 teams in the top 25. I will say this, though. I would say California is the best when it comes to top heavy. I still kind of lean towards Texas, though, when it comes to depth. Like if you included the top 300 teams, I might have to roll with Texas. And when it comes to talent, you could definitely mention Florida. But, you just look at all the teams that are ranked in the top 25 on the West Coast. You got 8 from California. You got 9 when you include St. Louis High School out in the 808. So really impressive what the West Coast is doing. J. Sarah Catholic's in the top 25 now. Mission Viejo is actually 8-0 on the field. They kind of had the same effect as Mater Dei, where there was a player that got in the game late when the game was already out of hand. So he was ineligible, so they ended up taking 4 losses. But they're really 8-0 on the field. But I got to say, West Coast, number 1 when it comes to top-heavy teams.
And one of the great what-ifs this season would be St. Louis out of Hawaii. What a great team right there. It'd be fun to match them up against any of those on that list. Moving on to the Southwest, as we take a look at the region and the teams. We mentioned Allen before. But what about North Shore here at number 2? Excellent rank at 15, Zach. And do they have the best chance to upend and overtake Allen here?
Now, Tommy, I love this team, man. They're the Sox team of 2018, and I do believe they have probably the best chance to knock off Allen in the playoffs. You're going to look at Shadrach Banks, their 2021 kid, the number 1 rated athlete among all sophomores. Then you got Zach Evans, who just likes to hurdle guys every Friday. He's number 1 running back in 2020 for a reason. And if it wasn't for Trey Sanders, he'd probably be the top guy. They got a bunch of other dudes. Demetrius Davis at quarterback's a big-time playmaker. I love the way they're playing with swag this year, and that's the way to beat Allen. You got to go into that game thinking you have a chance, and I think they really do have the best chance out of all teams in Texas. And I also want to say Lake Travis did lose last week against Austin Westlake. I still think that's a team to watch out for when it comes to maybe potentially beating Allen. They've really played Allen the toughest, and that was in last year's state championship game. They got a lot of the guys back. Hudson Card's going to bounce back from last week's game, and Garrett Wilson's a stud.
No doubt. A little bit of a shakeup in that region. Moving on to the next one, let's go ahead and talk about the Southeast region. And we have brought up Carroll City before, which right now 4th in the region, 12th ranked nationally. What are their chances of finishing among this group at number 1? No, a lot of talent, right? I mean, not maybe the biggest names, but really the team is undeniable, Zach.
Yeah, and Carroll City undefeated right now. That's the thing they have on Miami Central. They play Miami Central next week. They won last night against Booker T. Washington in it was 39-17, but the game was a little tighter than the final score indicates. But, you look at Carroll City, they're well coached. They have a good offense with Daniel Richardson at quarterback, a couple of stud running backs, Naquan in the backfield, Naquan Wright, and then the defense is lights out. So, finishing the year at number one nationally is going to be tough, but they definitely have a good chance to finish the year number one when it comes to the Southeast region.
And as we take a look at those top recruits for the Chiefs, again, a chance for them to make some noise down the road. Moving on to the next region, and it is the Midwest. Warren Central, number one in the region, number 14 nationally ranked. Any shot for, we've talked about Coleraine and Pickerington Central. What are the chances somebody there upends Warren Central?
Not good. They start the playoffs next week. I think they're going to have no issue at all running through the playoffs. Indiana's 6A playoff bracket usually is tough, though. You're going to get a couple of rivalry games. They open up with Ben Davis to start the playoffs, but I think Warren Central is going to win their first state title since 2013, and it's going to be pretty cool to see if that does happen, because Jaden George will join his older brother Jeff George Jr. and his father Jeff George as quarterbacks to win state titles as a quarterback at Warren Central. And it helps when you got this guy getting the ball too, David Bell, who's, you can make a case he's the best receiver in high school football.
Love the tradition there in terms of the family lineage. Great references there. And we end with the Northeast region and DeMatha High School. Number 4 right now. Again, we've mentioned it slightly here, Zach, on CBS Sports HQ, but how good is this team and what's the ceiling here?
Yeah, it didn't start out good for DeMatha this year. They got shut out on national TV against Florida Power St. Thomas Aquinas, 38-0. But they bounced back, 5 consecutive wins. They had a big win last week in triple overtime against a very good Gonzaga team. And they got a 3-game slate here that's as tough as anyone. They started out with the win last week. They get good counsel tonight, and then they end it with number 3 St. John's next week. So if they find a way to win these 3 games, expect to see DeMatha in the top 25 and be one of the hottest trending teams going into the WCAC playoffs.
All right, that's a breakdown of the regional areas across the country with our guy, Zack Poff. Zach, good stuff. Moving on to the Southwest. As we take a look at the region and the teams, we mentioned Allen before, but what about North Shore here at number 2, excellent rank at 15, Zach, and do they have the best chance to upend and overtake Allen here?
Now, Tommy, I love this team, man. They're the Sox team of 2018, and I do believe they have probably the best chance to knock off Allen in the playoffs. You're getting a look at Shadrach Banks there, a 2021 kid, the number 1 rated athlete among all sophomores. Then you got Zach Evans, who just likes to hurdle guys every Friday. He's number 1 running back in 2020 for a reason. And if it wasn't for Trey Sanders, he'd probably be the top guy. They got a bunch of other dudes. Demetrius Davis at quarterback's a big-time playmaker. I love the way they're playing with swag this year, and that's the way to beat Allen. You got to go into that game thinking you have a chance, and I think they really do have the best chance out of all teams in Texas. And I also want to say Lake Travis did lose last week against Austin Westlake. I still think that's a team to watch out for when it comes to maybe potentially beating Allen. They've really played Allen the toughest, and that was in last year's state championship game. They got a lot of the guys back. Hudson Card's going to bounce back from last week's game, and Garrett Wilson's a stud.
No doubt. A little bit of a shakeup in that region. Moving on to the next one, let's go ahead and talk about the Southeast region. And we have brought up Carroll City before, which right now 4th in the region, 12th ranked nationally. What are their chances of finishing among this group at number 1? No lot of talent, right? I mean, not maybe the biggest names, but really the team is undeniable, Zach.
Yeah, and Carroll City undefeated right now. That's the thing they have on Miami Central. They play Miami Central next week. They won last night against Booker T. Washington in it was 39-17, but the game was a little tighter than the final score indicates. But you look at Carroll City, they're well coached. They have a good offense with Daniel Richardson at quarterback, a couple of stud running backs, Naquan in the backfield, Naquan Wright, and then the defense is lights out. So finishing the year at number 1 nationally is going to be tough, but they definitely have a good chance to finish the year number 1 when it comes to the Southeast region.
And as we take a look at those top recruits for the Chiefs, again, a chance for them to make some noise down the road. Welcome back, everybody. You're streaming CBS Sports HQ. Time to talk recruiting storylines where we have some losses for USC and LSU, but a big gain for Mississippi State. And for that, let's bring in Barton Simmons. Welcome back here to HQ. This is what he does. He does it very well. No one better in the game. Chris Steele decommits from USC. What's the latest on his situation, Barton, and who benefits the most here?
Yeah, Tommy, it's decommit season right now. We got him coming out from all over the place, and Chris Steele's a big one. USC needs him. They need DB depth. They've already been thinned there at that position. Chris Steele's a guy with some versatility to play cornerback or safety, but he's backed off his pledge. And I expect USC to continue to recruit him moving forward, but there's some other options now, and he's going to take a closer look at programs like Florida, like Oklahoma. And he's going to make his decision at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio on NBC later this year. And that's going to be a decision that takes place pretty quickly. The turnover will happen pretty quickly because he's an early enrollee as well. He'll be enrolled in January. So that's going to be a kid to keep an eye on moving forward, a guy that's going to be a high priority. We've talked about him on this show a good bit with St. John Bosco, and he is a guy that I think USC will continue to work as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Clay Helton and crew going to lose Marshall, Harris, and Lockett at some point to graduation, and for Steele, the number 6 quarterback in the country, would be a big loss for them at one point getting that verbal commit. All right, next one we have Marcus Banks. So Ed Orgeron no longer having him as a commit. 4-star cornerback, the Houston native. What's the latest with him?
Yeah, a little bit surprising. This is proof that, what's going on in a current college football season doesn't always translate directly to the recruiting trail, at least for individual prospects. And Marcus Banks is decommitting from LSU, a program that still wants him, despite a really good season so far for Ed Orgeron and his staff. And I think a big reason for this, a big factor and player involved in this, is Alabama. And I think he's been intrigued by Alabama, going to visit Alabama. I think he likes what he sees over there. Alabama's got to figure out that they've got room for him because they've got a lot of big fish on the board as well. But Texas A&M also in the mix is the Texas native, and a guy that will be, I think, highly sought after if he wants to be, if he wants to expand his list, because he's been a senior riser this year. The film is outstanding. He was also very good in the camp circuit. He's a little bit more of a slight prospect, but really physical, very athletic at cornerback, and I think his stock is only going up. So we'll be interested to see where he lands. Again, this was a little bit of a surprise, I think, to the LSU staff.
All right, so let's wrap things up with a JUCO signing here. I love the JUCO news, at least the commit here, Fred Peters to Mississippi State. More Bell looks like there for Mr. Peters, 3-star guy. How did this kind of all come together?
Yeah, well, I mean, Mississippi State has to really mine the junior college ranks. And they do that every year. And this year, the 2019 class, the necessity hasn't been there quite as much because it's a loaded in-state year in the high school ranks. But they're always going to dip in. And Fred Peters is a guy they've been recruiting for a while. In fact, his cousin, Jamal Peters, is a really talented cornerback on the Mississippi State roster currently. And remember, they lose Jonathan Abrams likely next year, a really talented NFL-bound safety. And this is a kid that could come in and potentially jump into a starting role right away. Of course, in the junior college ranks, you're looking for that instant impact. And a guy this year who really covers well, still very physical, but I think he brings a lot of versatility to that defensive backfield, and Bob Shoop, the defensive coordinator, as well. So really nice pickup as they continue to mine Jones County, a program that's been good for them at Mississippi State.
All right, that's a look at the recruiting storylines with Barton Simmons. Let's welcome back Zack Poff into the mix. And guys, as we wrap things up, let's go ahead and get you out the door with what we've got going on in terms of the scoreboard and the big games going on Friday and throughout the weekend. And Zack, I'll give you sort of the last word here. Again, the top 5 high school scoreboard, the biggest thing that people should be looking out for is what?
See if Modern Day bounces back. They lost 41-18 last week against St. John Bosco. They get another top 25 team in J. Sayre Catholic. And also, too, let's see how Emmett Smith's son does. E.J. Smith against Allen Sny. Those are 2 things to watch out for.
All right. Great stuff, gentlemen. Boy, if you're not following these guys on Twitter, by the way, Barton Simmons, make sure you follow him in the college game. Also, CBS Sports HQ and Sportsline. And then our guy, Zack Poff, of course. You may find a Dodgers tweet somewhere in there just letting you know. Trying to join the Red Sox in the World Series. Guys, thank you very much. Enjoyed that one as well, and we'll see you next week. And make sure to check out the 24/7 Sports College Football Pod with Barton Simmons, Chip Patterson, Tom Fornelli. They've got the big ones, including Auburn and Ole Miss. Gus Malzahn. Woo! Have fun, everybody. We'll see you next week.